Welcome to Business Connect, a podcast produced and presented by the City of Miramar in the great state of Florida, the gateway to the Caribbean and Latin America. This podcast airs every third Thursday in the month at 7 p.m. and brings you information, tips, and ideas from experts to take your business to the next level. We also get to hear from folks who have done it all and can share insights with you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Johnny Douglas.
Welcome to the City of Miramar's Business Connect, where we connect your business to what's important. My name is Johnny Douglas, your host, and today we have a terrific show for you. I have my special guest here, Dr. Anthony Richiez. He is the president and CEO and founder of Dynamic Training. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Johnny.
Oh, well, Anthony, it's great to have you here. Dr. Richie, you are the president and CEO of Dynamic Training, correct?
Correct.
This is one of those businesses that are very much needed for our society today. It's one of those businesses that help professionals and help teachers, but also help trainers to train better in their capacity of what they do on their jobs, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Sir, I'm going to jump right in and ask questions because I
let's
know
do it.
we have a monologue and all of that, but I'm going to skip through that because this is something that I really think needs to be broadcasted, and people need to understand the depth and also the awareness, but also the credibility it is to have a trainer who knows how to train very well to get the scope of work to the understanding of the people who have to perform the duty. Correct?
Absolutely, absolutely.
One of the questions I have for you, give us a little bit about your educational journey. How did this all come to pass?
So my journey is kind of interesting because I was a terrible student when I was in school. In middle school, my grades were atrocious. I don't even remember the names of my high school teachers. And I actually dropped out of high school. And that made me kind of feel a little bit bad, but I knew I was smart. But the teachers weren't teaching me. They were teaching the way they knew how to teach, but it wasn't resonating with me. Long story short, I went and got my doctorate degree. And a lot of people say, well, you were a high school dropout, you have a doctorate degree, how did you do that? When I went through my journey in college, I realized that I wasn't getting information the way they were giving it to me. And I realized these teachers are kind of failing me. So I developed my own way of learning. And then I had to really do a lot of introspection. And I said to myself, you know what? I think I can do what they're doing. As a matter of fact, I can do better than what they're doing. And I started thinking about becoming a teacher. But I transitioned into business, and I got my master's degree in business, started my own business. And then one day I became a business instructor, a part-time business instructor. And there was a student in a class that was getting very, very frustrated with the class. And I started thinking about the way he felt is the way I felt. So then I started developing a concept called dynamic teaching, which brings certain elements to the classroom to make sure you can reach everybody, because my teachers weren't reaching me, and that's what frustrated me, and I want to stop the frustration. Now, that's just teaching. My business focuses on teachers and trainers because they essentially do the same thing. In my opinion, there's no difference between a college professor and a corporate trainer. You're teaching adults, and that kind of training and that kind of way of teaching doesn't get taught in school. There's something that someone said one day. They said, I became a college professor because I have a degree. And they looked at all the credits that I have. They said, you can teach this class. Go ahead and teach. And then I ran into some folks in Orlando. I spoke at a training summit, and they were saying the same thing. I'm very good at what I do, and they threw me in to start training people. Now, I know how to do certain things, but to give the information is a totally different story. So my journey from where I was, the humble beginnings of me being a terrible student, to me being now a teacher of teachers, and my motto is teaching teachers how to teach better, or teaching trainers how to teach better, is what I live by. And I think this is very, very needed in the community.
Oh, and one thing you said that is very important is, and I love this about what you said, is that from the time you were in high school, dropped out, and went to college, you didn't stay there. You didn't stay in the fact of defeat. You turned that around, you pivoted, and you said, hey, you know what? If I'm having this problem, then I recognize this problem in someone else. And some of the things that you said just really hit home with me as well. I was one of those learners that teachers couldn't reach me. And it took a very special person to know exactly where I'm at, where I was, and where I sat, to say, hey, you know, I see you.
Right.
I hear what you're saying without you saying a word.
Right.
Because you're in the back of the class. Most of the people start from the front of the class very enthusiastic. And then next thing you know, they're all the way in the back of the class because they've lost all enthusiasm. They've lost all excitement or anything about class to the point where I'm just here because I have to be here.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was thinking about this the other day. Those students graduate from college and they make it through college and they go to work and they still have the same frustrations, the same fears, the same insecurities about things that they don't know. So when they get trained by someone, they really don't know everything. I mean, think about it. You have a college degree. Do you remember every single thing that you were taught? Probably not. Our education system is kind of an input-output system. You input information to the students and they give the output on a test, and that's it. There's no activation of what they do, so they can't remember certain things. The teachers that really made me feel the lesson, made me experience the lesson, are the ones that really taught me, and that got me through every single test. I'll give you an example. When I taught economics, which is one of the toughest classes to teach, my goal was to make every student fall in love with economics. I also taught statistics, which by far is the most feared class in college. I wanted every student to become statisticians. So let me tell you what I did. And this will go a long way with trainers out there that want to train their staff and make their staffs a little bit more dynamic. So the first day of class, I told students, have you guys ever seen commercial with statistics all over the place? And they said, yeah, I've seen some of those. And I showed them some clips, some video clips. And I said, do you think those people are telling you the truth? Then I showed them some political clips. They said, no, those people are lying. I said, if they're lying to you, how do you know they're lying? They said, we don't know. They use all these statistics. I said, do you want me to teach you how to find out if they're lying with statistics? They said, yeah. So I had them from day one. There was then an incentive for them to know that. So they were enthusiastic about learning how statistics work. So I had them in the palm of my hand and I taught them everything that I knew. Midway through the semester, they knew all the basics. They can go around and really figure out what's wrong and how statistical analysis is done. But then I said, because most of them were working in the evening, this was the evening course out of college, and I said to them, you want to change something at work? Why don't you find something you want to do to change? For example, want to get more break time, want to get a new refrigerator, want to get a new awning in the back where the staff is. Why don't you create a statistical report to prove that that's viable for the organization? And you can actually use it once you graduate from the class. So my final exam was a final project, a real life project. Now, every single student was involved. And I bet you today, this is about maybe 15 years ago, if you find one of my students and you ask them about statistics, they'll be able to tell you because they lived it. Right. And that's part of some of the issues that people have with getting knowledge to students, because a lot of educators, which are trainers and teachers, don't know how the brain works and how people actually learn.
Right. You know, you said something very important again at the when you started off your sentences. You said you came into the classroom and you asked them a question. The thing is that even when it comes to the business community, even here in our department, when we're creating programs, we're creating venues, we're creating events, the first thing we do is we go and we talk to the end user. We talk to the people who we want to use this product or service. We get their intake on it. So what you did, what I really admire, was you stepped into the classroom and you asked them, hey, are you interested in learning this?
Right.
You know, and I think teaching starts there with getting an interest and getting somebody to say, yeah, I do want to know that. Right then and there, you've got them, like you said. So what I'm thinking is the same people in that classroom that are in public schooling or in private school, those are the same people that go to a new job and they have the same learning capacity there that they're bringing into the job.
Correct.
And now this trainer is standing in front of them who don't know how to get that product in front of them so they can fall in love with the product and represent the company very well when selling the product.
Absolutely, and that's so true. A lot of corporate trainers, they know their stuff. They're subject matter experts, but that doesn't mean you know how to teach somebody how to learn something. And most people learn by seeing and hearing certain things. You know, the common phrase you hear is, "Here, let me show you. Here, listen to this." But a lot of people need to do certain things. You need to occupy 3 of the 5 senses to teach somebody something, and they don't do that. Way back in the days, I used to work for UPS. I was a manager at UPS, and I became the trainer of the brand new employees, and they just thrusted me into training. That's when I first started really noticing that I can do this very well. But they had a very unique way of doing something. They called it the 7 steps of effective training. And I haven't seen it anywhere else but UPS. The first thing is trainer prepares. So you have to prepare all your material, which is commonplace, everybody knows. Then they say trainer explains the job. Then the trainer demonstrates the job, but it doesn't stop there. Then the trainee explains the job. And when there's some disconnect, they do in education what they call scaffolding. You kind of fill in the blanks. Then the trainee demonstrates the job. So you see if there's issues there, then the trainee demonstrates it, and they fix certain things until they get it right. Then the trainer reviews the big picture, which is missing in a lot of places. Then after that, the trainer follows up. And I would follow up a week later, then a month later, then 6 months later, because you're the subject matter expert, but that person just learned it today, and they're going to forget certain things. And I was telling my wife this the other day because she was explaining something to a coworker, and she was frustrated. I showed her like 3 times, and this exact conversation I had with her, and she wrote these things down, and she went back, and she used these steps. She said she got it now. Now she knows. And a lot of trainers don't realize this because the brain works in a very interesting way. Now, I don't know if we have time to go into how the brain works and the neurobiology of it, but it's very, very interesting.
It's complex.
It is complex. But I would give everybody out there this. There are 3 things to being dynamic, because my thing is called dynamic teaching. There are 3 different aspects. You need to have energy, vigor, and motion. When you have those 3 things in a training session, they're going to be hanging on every word that you say. It's not going to be a boring training session, because it's not only how the brain works and how you get information. You have to be kind of exciting. You have to be not boring. Let me say that. There's all different words that we can use, but you have to be unboring, because a lot of trainers, I'll tell you, Johnny.
Monotone.
Oh my God, they're reading off of the PowerPoint. It's just driving me insane. And you want people to really get into it and then ask you those critical questions. More times, I'm having them do more talking than me. I give them some information, then I get some feedback. What do you think? What do you think? And they'll tell me, I don't know. I didn't ask you what you know. I asked you, what do you think? Well, I think doesn't work because this process might be a little bit better if we do work this way. Why do you say that? Because X, Y, and Z. So now the understanding is happening. Then when I fill in the blanks, then they go, oh. And then you start seeing the light bulbs turn on. That's a properly trained employee. But there needs to be interaction. I tell people all the time, as a trainer, you can't be the pontificator in chief. You have to be the trainer in chief. And if you're just up there, I'm the expert, I'm going to talk for 3 hours straight, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them. They're going to grab their cell phone. They're thinking about what's for dinner or what's for lunch, and you're never going to get them back.
And when I worked in my formal job as a trainer, we called it the buy-in. What is the buy-in? To get them to buy into what you're selling them.
Absolutely.
What you're teaching them.
And you're selling. You are selling.
You're selling your position. You're selling your job. You're selling the merchandise. So, question for you. Any of our viewers today have a business and they wanted to know what your company offers to help their in-house trainers, or do you do that? I do. I call it dynamic training. The same characteristics that I use to teach a teacher how to train, a teacher how to teach, I teach a trainer how to train. And I go in-house, I can do a 1-day, train the trainer,
type of deal. Now, there's a lot of train-the-trainers, but not dynamic trainers. They don't have those three elements. See, dynamic teaching or dynamic training is not just energy, vigor, and motion. It also has to do with the comprehension portion of it, because the way we comprehend material is very significant. A lot of people need to remember things, remember lists. There's something that I learned a long time ago called the Roman room system. I teach them that, but I teach them a lot of memory producing tactics that they can utilize for whichever type of learner you have, whether you have an auditory learner, a visual learner, a kinesthetic learner, or a read-write learner. It's fixed for every single one. And I'll tell you, a lot of business owners say, well, why should I hire somebody? He's going to charge me, some money, and I can just make the people who are experts teach the new people. They don't know how to train. And what happens is this, and a lot of business owners don't realize this. When you turn over an employee, there was a study years ago, and it said it costs about $3,000. I think it's probably more now. $3,000 to replace a new employee in total cost. My training is less than that per employee. So you train a trainer once, I follow up on them the same way I follow up with someone else. I follow up with them, me and that trainer, and I make that trainer into an exceptional dynamic trainer. So those employees that stay there would stick for a long period of time. Another thing is this, Johnny. Me having a master's in business also, I have my doctorate in education, have a master's in business. So I understand profit and loss. I understand turnover. I understand the cost of losing employees. What happens is employees don't want to admit that they don't know something. A student will admit that they don't know something because they want to get a better grade in the class and they want to pass that class and not take it over. But an employee won't admit they don't know because they think their boss is going to think they're incompetent. So they hide that. Performance goes down. The owner is racking their brains trying to figure out what is the problem. For example, it's April 25th. Am I correct?
Yes.
Last night I was looking at nightly news and they were talking about Boeing. And Boeing is having all these problems with all these things and planes falling apart in midair. An employee didn't do their job. How come they couldn't catch it? Because the employee was trained. The trainers came in. They have the documentation, they were trained. But how was that training done? How was the follow-up done? So these employees are hiding the fact that they might not know how to do something, and now you have planes in the middle of the sky falling apart. And now Boeing is taking all of this grief, and I think a lot of it has to do with training. That's a training issue. If I can talk to the CEO of Boeing, I'll come to your company and train your trainers so you won't have issues like that. Now, I'm not saying that's the only issue, but it's a gigantic factor because most of these errors are human errors. And like I said, most people, they want to keep their salary so they can pay their bills, so they can take their kids to summer camp and go on vacation, are not going to admit they don't know something. They say, you know what, I'm just going to figure it out. Oh, I'll go on Google. And sometimes Google can't give you the information that a trainer is, but the trainers aren't reaching them. They give the information, input, output, give the information, they give it back. You have a certificate of completion, you have a roster that said they were trained, and we're done. But yet planes are falling out of the sky and all these issues that we're having.
You know, I think that when it comes to training, there's, like you said, the levels that we have there of training. But I think also to make sure, like you said, with the follow-up, that that employee has a clear understanding and direction of what their role is.
Absolutely.
Of what the clear and concise of what their role is and how, and if they need any understanding on how to perfect that or to get it in motion, to start rolling with that, that needs to be clearly defined as well. I think sometimes once the training is done, you have a lot of general training.
Right.
A lot of general training where the whole company goes for one training. But in each of those companies, they work in different departments.
Right.
You know, and so that department may not need that particular training, but everybody's doing the same training.
Right.
You know, so I think if it's a streamlined training and it's geared towards what that department does strictly, I think you could get a better outcome. With
Absolutely.
your
Absolutely.
employees.
In schools, there are different types of students, and we make our lesson plans for specific students to encompass everybody. They're not doing that in the corporate world. So if I'm in a middle school, I was a middle school teacher for 5 years, and there are some kids that are special needs kids, but we don't want to isolate them and send them out, so we have them in the classroom. So I had to teach to make sure I reach them and reach the high performing kids. Well, these kids grew up and still have the same issues, but now they're adults. You're not going to have that in the workforce? You do. Trainers don't know how to do that. Now, some of these trainers, I've gone to the training seminars, and these trainers are being trained by the same people who are not giving them the information, so the trainers aren't getting them. That's what made me create the company that I have. It's called Dynamic Education, because I want to make trainers and teachers more dynamic. When you're more dynamic, people watch you, people listen to you, people follow you. This is why TikTok is so big, because it's dynamic. This is why YouTube is so big, because it's dynamic. But nobody's reading Reader's Digest anymore. Nobody's picking up a magazine. They're going online because the social media world realized that they have to have energy, vigor, and motion involved in that, and that's why people are tuning in. We need to do the same thing for our workforce if we're going to compete with the other countries around the world.
Okay, I agree.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm glad.
What are some of the common misconceptions about effective training?
People think that if you're exciting and you're telling jokes, that that's effective.
Okay.
So that's just engagement. Effective training is making sure that people get the message and it's solidified in there. And that's why people need to understand neurobiology. And I don't go into a scientific explanation of it, but I give them a basic explanation so you can understand. If you understand how the brain works, then you can teach somebody. People aren't taught that in education school, not to that level.
Okay. So when a business have a training event and they solicit your support for that, what are the first things they can expect
From me,
from you?
first thing I'm going to do is talk to the employees. Next people I talk to is the trainers, and I try to figure out what the disconnect is. Now, when I've done this in the past, I talk to the employees, they don't know who I am. And sometimes the trainers don't know who I am. I talk to the employees and I ask them a couple of questions. And they don't know who I am. Who are you? I say, I'm just doing I'm doing some research on this industry. And I find out certain things. And I talk to the trainers and I ask them similar questions and I see what the disconnect is. Because there too, some trainers don't want to admit that they don't know. But it's okay. But once they learn what I learned, then when I come back, hey, my employees didn't know how to do this. How do I fix that? Now they want to learn how to get better because those two are also saying, I trained them. I don't want to let the higher ups know that I'm not training well because the only proof is the documentation. And then when an employee makes a mistake, who do they blame? The company. Nobody trained me. Yes, I did. Look at the documentation. But yet planes are still falling out of the sky. Right. You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Wow. Okay, so I'm glad you're here.
Okay.
Because this is really, really interesting because I don't think we talk about it enough.
We don't.
I don't think we properly challenge ourselves enough, especially in the business world,
right,
where we connect and harbor those disconnects and try to fix them.
Right.
Try to work through those disconnects because disconnects can be really detrimental to your business.
Absolutely.
I don't care if it's a mom and pop business or it's a giant corporation. A disconnect is a disconnect,
right?
Whatever it is. I find myself I love to go out and eat in restaurants.
Okay, as do I.
And some of the things I see in restaurants reflect the training. And if you ever, first of all, I'm a people watcher, so I love to watch people.
Okay.
And watching, I can see some of the things that I'm like, is that really supposed to happen that way?
Right.
Is that supposed to be? Okay. So I'm questioning this, and then I wonder, was there training on that?
Right.
How extensive was the training? Now I'll be transparent here. I worked for a restaurant for a couple of years, and working in a restaurant, we were trained.
You were trained? It's documented.
We were trained. But to really have the soft skill training, how to approach a table,
right,
how to engage a customer, how to be enthusiastic about what's on the menu.
Right.
How to know the menu. So all of those things that they rambled through, we weren't clear on.
Right. Right.
So it's the same thing with, I think, any corporation that you go through the training. We have a 2-week training. Well, in 2 weeks, I can't learn a 45 menu.
Absolutely.
You get 45 item menu.
Absolutely.
That's not a 2-week.
It's not.
That's like, I'm going to have to develop that over time. So how does one combat that?
So, first of all, you're right about that. It's a 2-week training. They're not going to get everything. Too much information. Now, a lot of people don't realize memory is based on repetition. So let's talk about the public school system or just the school system and then the corporate system. In the school system, the curriculum changes or my specific lesson plan changes based on the students that I have. I have a goal. They have to learn X, Y, and Z, but I might change it every semester or every year. They need to do the same thing there. The trainer needs to be the one walking around and seeing what's happening to make sure the training evolves. I've seen some training manuals that are about 20 years old. Oh, it's the same principles. Yeah, but people do things differently. We have technology now. We have different language, the way people associate information. So the way learning happens and the way memory happens has to do with repetition. And you have to, when you learn a new concept, you have to attach that new concept to some past experience. If I'm talking to my son about balancing a checkbook and I'm telling him, you get this check and you write this and do this, that's not going to make any sense to him because that doesn't exist.
Right.
So the training manuals that I saw was something similar to that. So they said, we just exclude that and we just say something else or whatever it is they told me. Right. But my point is it needs to evolve. Right. And that trainer needs to be talking to all the employees. The same way, every once in a while, I'll go to the schoolyard or the cafeteria, hang out with the students, see what they're talking about. Because if they're talking about the latest song or the latest trend, and I put that as part of my class, they're going to connect right away. So if I'm looking at the latest things that are going on, or the latest technology, or whatever the company is doing, that trainer needs to be the lifeblood of that company, especially if that person is part of the human resource portion of it. They need to be the lifeblood of that. So when they have a training session and they mention these things, everybody perks up because they can relate to it. Now they can relate to that information, but you have to constantly return to certain subjects over time. So training is not just one thing and you keep on going for the rest of your life. The trainer is an ongoing presence. So those trainers in those companies have to continue. In school, they call it scaffolding. In business, we're going to call it something different. But you continually focus on certain things, and that repetition makes sure that those people know these things. Because you're not going to learn 2 weeks of information and retain that for 10 years. It's impossible to do that. So first thing I will tell you, and I will tell them, memory is based on repetition. And cognition or comprehension has to do with taking a new concept and associating it with past experience, something that you know. For example, if I tell you, do you remember the first time you rode a bike? In your mind, you would say, yeah, you know that experience. So then if I'm talking about something that has to do with machinery, I'll use that bike as an example to explain this machinery. Now you're going to understand this machinery more clear than if I didn't. Okay. Because I'm combining with something that you're already familiar with and it's a past experience. But if I just start talking about machinery and all these different terms, you're going to fall asleep, you're going to get it, you might have short-term memory, pass a test, but 10 years later, what is that thing again? They have no idea. So those are the kind of challenges that a lot of small businesses have and large businesses have because they don't understand how training is supposed to happen and how teaching is supposed to happen. So it's a two-way street. The employees have to get the information, but we have to give the information right. So the onus is on the company to understand those two things because it is a two-way street and that connection needs to be made. But on this side, understand them and know how to deliver it. When that meets in the middle, you should have very little problems.
Well, Dr. Richiez, thank you so much for your expertise in showing us how dynamic training can help any business who has or struggling or challenges with training their employees. I know on the bottom of our screens, you'll see where you can reach Dr. Anthony Richiez and his team, that they can help you build a great training institute for your company as well. Next we have on my agenda here is things that are going on in the City of Miramar. Do you realize that City of Miramar have 2 grants that we give to businesses who are in the City of Miramar? If you are a small business in the City of Miramar and you're in historic Miramar, that is from University all the way to 441. We have a signage grant. If you want your sign replaced, your exterior sign replaced in your business, we give you a grant up to $10,000 to replace your sign. Go on MiramarFL.gov / economic development. Also, we have another grant, up to $25,000 can be awarded to you if you are a business in the City of Miramar. If you're a home-based business and you wish to move into a brick and mortar, we can do that. That grant is available for you. If you are in the City of Miramar and you have a business in the City of Miramar, say you want to upgrade some of your equipment, say you want to get marketing supplies, say you want to do any renovations except for walls. We don't do all those things, but we do buy equipment to help your business out. You want to get new cash registers and stuff. That's what that is for. So remember, go on Miramar's website, MiramarFL.gov /EDH, and you can find all that information. You can also find it by reaching me at my extension, 954-602-3269. Again, join Miramar and our Business Pulse, where we have a newsletter that tells you everything in our business world that's going on in the City of Miramar. That's on MiramarFL.gov / Business Pulse. We have a lot going on in the City of Miramar, and we're glad that we have partnered also with Dr. Anthony Richiez, that he can provide information to you as well to get your business to the next level on your training and development of your employees. Again, thank you for joining Business Connect here in City of Miramar. I tell you every week, have a great weekend, but stay connected.
Thanks for listening to the Business Connect podcast. Be sure to visit MiramarFL.gov /podcast to join the conversation, access the show notes, and discover our fantastic bonus content. We would love for you to subscribe, rate, and give a review on iTunes. Until next time.